Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the Jim Comey indictment returned out of the Eastern District of Virginia yesterday. One count of a false statement and one count of obstruction. I want to talk first about why it is such a signal moment, at least for prosecutors, and then go into some nuts and bolts. I imagine we'll be talking about this case quite a bit going forward. But just to start, I've been at pains in various TV appearances and the like to try to say, we are talking here about 5-alarm, fire, bright line, Rubicon, etc. It's a really big deal and in a really bad way. Why do I say that? And I for so many of us, there's just this plethora of different outrages that are reported on, and this just seems like one among many. It's not. The first and most important responsibility of a prosecutor, it's the very first thing in the principles of federal prosecution. It's an absolute constitutional principle is never, ever indicting someone without the evidence to show it. It's the soul of unfairness, right? For one, we can think about Comey here and others, but in terms of corruption at the level of a prosecutor, making up a case basically, or even you do your analysis, your best professional judgment is we're a little shy of a load. Bringing a case anyway is absolute anathema, absolute derogation of a prosecutor's duty. Many prosecutors, this certainly happened to me. You have agents there who say, oh, come on, he'll plead anyway, it's fine. And, any prosecutor at all worth her or his salt who would actually subject a person for whom the law and facts aren't there to a charge, deserves to be drummed out of the country forever. It is so bad. That's the number one. You can't imagine a worse abuse of responsibility. We had a sort of similar one with Adams where the new enforcers, Emile Beauvais, went in and said, dismiss this solid case. Okay. But think of the axiom that better 10 guilty people walk than one innocent go free. There's just a special horror to the charging of a person without evidence. And that's just for starters here. Point number 2. The command, and it was a command to charge, comes from on high. This never happens. You develop cases as a prosecutor or with agents. What happened here? The President of the United States fires his own choice for U.S. attorney because that person won't play ball because the person says, consistent with the most basic and important duty that he has, there's not a case here. So he fires that guy and puts in someone else, Lindsay Halligan, an insurance lawyer with no experience whatsoever, so that she will bring this case that's basically the same as the President of the United States, who says, moreover, I don't know if there's anything, I won't decide it. I don't know if there's anything bad, but, he's a terrible person. That's what he literally said about Comey. You don't indict people for being a terrible person. And by the way, Comey is not a terrible person, but in any event, so one, no, you don't have the facts and law. So bad. 2, it comes from on high from the president. That just doesn't happen. And we have more of that, and we're going to be seeing more of that. Just 2 days ago, the Deputy Attorney General's office sent out a demand to investigate all these people whose only, it'd be one thing. It would be really bad, but one thing if there was some kind of viable theory that the actual thing that Trump was taking reprisals for, the actual conduct of indicting him or impeaching him, were itself criminal. You can almost see, and then you charge him with that. This isn't that at all. This is simply, they made my life miserable. They indicted me or impeached me. I'm going to get them. And now everyone go find the crime. Couldn't be worse. So the manufacture of it, that it comes from the top, from the president, and that it is plainly as against a political enemy. In this case, Comey. So the reason it's being done is for raw political reasons. No proof, comes from on high against a political enemy. Welcome to Moscow. I mean, this is, and I'm really at pains, if you understand one thing from, any time listening to me, please understand this. This is so fucking bad. I really am at pains to try to describe it. Okay. So that's the first thing I wanted to note. And, it's frustrating in a way. I think possibly this point that I've just made will hit home harder to certain lawyers or elites or whatever. Be that as it may, it is 101 on a scale of 0 to 100 in absolute dereliction, derogation, corruption of the Department of Justice mission. Okay, we'll be talking a lot more about this, but I thought people would be interested in a few nuts and bolts. Okay, let me just note, we've got this memo that's remarkable that from the day before the indictment to this neophyte handpicked U.S. attorney who doesn't know her way down the hall, that says we don't have a case here. That memo is going to be pretty interesting and important. You can be sure that in motion practice before the trial, there'll be an attempt to get at it and to really show what's happened here. Maybe a subpoena of the U.S. Attorney, Lindsay Halligan, maybe even higher up folks. DOJ will resist it and say it's irrelevant. But guess what? It ain't irrelevant. The fact of this, and they did it in the face of it, not only is that not irrelevant, it is a case for serious sanctions against Lindsay Halligan, who volunteered to be Trump's flunky here. She's already, I don't know if she anticipated this. Her signature alone is on the grand jury indictment. Indeed, supposedly she actually handled the indictment. She's already been referred for bar charges. And as this comes out and it's in front of a judge, let me just say quickly, Comey has a splendid lawyer and a judge who's good for him. I know him, this judge. Punctilious guy, smart guy, and real respect for civil liberties, former defense background. So if some of this stuff could come out and basically frame a case of great dereliction on her part, and there could be serious sanctions and the like. That's point. I want to give you 4 or 5 nuts and bolts point. That's the first. The second is there's still a little bit of confusion. I think I know, but not I think I know, but nevertheless, people I respect a lot think it's not so clear. What's the exact statement that Comey made that supposedly was the knowing and intentional lie? What I think it is Senator Cruz says to him, you said before you didn't authorize a leak in this 2016 investigation. Comey testifying says, yeah, I stay by that testimony. So we're talking about something he says in 2016, but basically affirms there so they can get it in under the statute. And it's about, did he authorize somebody at the FBI who reached out, and probably Andy McCabe, who reached out to the probably Wall Street Journal to give the answer. Now, it's got to be knowingly and intentionally false. And there's going to be a big factual issue about whether he says he didn't authorize. There's some real reason to think that, in fact, he didn't authorize. He learned about it after the fact. That itself would mean the whole case is ill-fated. The facts are against it. And second, and in addition, a lie like this to be a crime has to be material, has to matter for something. Why do we care? Why would any reasonable person care that in 2020, Trump is telling Senator Cruz that he meant what he said in 2016 about whether he authorized in advance a call to the Wall Street Journal? Man, oh man, that's, super thin and almost silly. And that'll hurt the charge anyway. But B, maybe not even material, maybe legally even. I mean, you can see the judge playing a big role here. So that's the second nut and bolt to say. The third is to just explain what's the statement. We can find out easily. Right now, we don't know for sure, but you will see. The question is, what kind of pretrial litigation will happen here? Because Comey, and I thought his very effective and poised statement seemed to say, let's go to trial. I'm ready. This is a total crock. And you can see his wanting to move quickly. He's got a better lawyer. Government probably isn't ready. On the other hand, if you're a cautious, comprehensive kind of defense lawyer, you'll say, we've got a real shot at a selective prosecution motion. We've got a real shot at different things. And that would include maybe a bill of particulars. Hey, would you please tell us, government, what the hell you're even talking about that you say I lied about? So that's the sort of third thing, the way we would find out in a nuts and bolts way, what even the charge is. And that will also really depend. We've got a district known for moving very quickly. In the normal course of things, even in that district, we'd be looking at a year, but you can well see it might not be. I mentioned this in passing. He's got a lawyer, Pat Fitzgerald, who is, huge reputation, hugely respected. Pat Fitzgerald, was the U.S. attorney in Chicago, but also just a trial stud before. He's the guy who also was independent counsel going after Libby and Rove and the like for maybe lying about outing an FBI agent. But he's big. And that leads me to the sort of fourth nuts and bolts point, which is you have an office. They don't just casually produce a memo that says, oh, Madam U.S. Attorney, you don't have a case here. That was carefully thought through. And it's just got to be the case that the people in that office, including the brass, really endorse this notion and were ready to have it be known to the public as right now it is. And that's going to matter. Who's going to try the case? Not a chance in the world. And Lindsay Halligan knows how. She doesn't know the rules of criminal evidence or anything. She seems to have stumbled through the grand jury. She cannot try the case. So we're going to find out how bad is the alienation in that office. Already, Comey's, in the wake of Comey's statement, one longtime assistant has resigned. But that is his son-in-law, Maureen Comey's husband. So that's not necessarily seismic. But when it comes time to actually saying, you go there and present this case, which you think is bullshit and would be a violation of your highest duty and might lead to sanctions, man, oh man, you could see, and this has been reported, real possibility of flight by the by the way, I've worked in this office, punctilious, buttoned down, solid assistant U.S. attorneys who ply their trade, always have, in the Eastern District of Virginia in Alexandria. So you may find the evidence of people and the resentment for what has happened here and the bringing of charges is profound, pronounced, and results in a lot of people voting with their feet, as it were. And then finally, just a note about Comey. Look, he produced this statement before, and normally you don't have a defendant talk. He's different. First, Comey really good, really poised. We've seen him basically get others' goats several times. He is really poised, really a quick thinker, knows where the quick openings are and plays them. So, and in this, I think it was a pitch perfect presentation that everybody saw. It had nothing to do with the evidence. Pat Fitzgerald would say, shut up about that. And he would, and he should. But just basically, he's trying to make us afraid. Don't be afraid. I'm not afraid. Get engaged is the very tone, rather than, well, actually, I didn't do it because of X, Y, and Z. No, like, this is rank injustice. This is total corruption of the prosecutorial function. My heart grieves for the Department of Justice, but I still believe in the judicial system. And if that one delivers him from, remember what they're trying to do to him, take away his liberty on ill-founded charges. And so if he's able, including by a jury verdict in some way, most dramatically if it's by a jury verdict, normally a defendant doesn't testify. I think he will, but his basic stance, I'm not afraid and let's go, I think at the political as well as legal level is basically pitch perfect. All right, 94 other things to say, including in the nuts and bolts, but I think that will do for now. A very, very important indictment that to me really, brings us dead center into autocratic territory and is the sort of thing that just can't happen in a vital or healthy democracy. This is sort of Trump at his worst, and I think history will so record it. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.